Hello all, welcome to my channel. So in this video, I'm going to demonstrate one of the important project in Azure Cloud. So the project I'm going to discuss is a real world e-commerce platform with minimal microservices. For our lab projects, because this is like a kind of a lab project, we are going to use only a minimal number of microservices. So if you see, right, as the name suggests, it's a secure Azure microservices platform. So why we are using the secure word is nothing but because if you see here, right, the app services here. So we are using a Flask based application here with a minimal code so that we are not going to concentrate much on the Flask application. Why? Because we are mostly concerned about the architecture. Okay, so this application is behind it's placed in the private subnet. So user, a normal user from an internet is not going to access this app services directly because they are placed in the private subnet as the name suggests here. Okay. Now, this is you can consider is like a user product order system, a kind of e-commerce platform, which is having two parts. This is the first path and this is the second path. Okay, so whenever users try to access this path, so from the internet, they'll first hit the application gateway, and based upon the path-based routing, it's going to redirect to the particular app services here. So this is the first app services and this is nothing but the second app services. So depending upon the path, you are going to redirect either to this microservices or this microservices. Now, the various components what we are going to learn in this architecture is, let me change it to the architecture diagram. So this is the architecture what I have made. So whenever the users try to access this public DNS of the application gateway. Okay. So I have mentioned some random IP here. So whenever they're going to access the public DNS of this load balancer, either through /user path or / a product path, they are going to redirect to the respective microservices. So this is one of the path and this is another path. So they're going to redirect to according to the path. So this is one microservice, this is another microservice which is going to serve the user. Now, what are the things we are going to learn over here? So the first thing what we are going to learn here is Azure App Services. So instead of I am if you consider my previous videos, right, I've been using the a particular VM machines, right? VM machines, and I installed the Flask-based application on the VM machines like Ubuntu. Now, what we'll do in this project, we are going to use app services. So Azure App Services is a kind of service which is like a automatic thing. Instead of you being updating all the packages like Python packages and all the update libraries, this is ready-made. So you can deploy your direct code here so that it will be easy, and it is also a scalable architecture. Now, we are going to learn how to configure this app services and use it in our project. Next one we are going to learn about is application gateway. Application gateway is nothing but the front of the web server where this is going to distribute the load based upon the path-based routing. So there are different kinds of routing, right? We are using the path-based routing here. So we can consider it is like a this is like a load balancer. In the Azure, we call it as Azure Application Gateway, whereas in AWS, we call it as a load balancer. Load balancer, nothing but ALB, Application Load Balancer. So we are going to learn how to configure the application gateway. And we are also going to have the VNet. Why VNet? This is like a private network, right? Private subnet. A complete private network. So it's like a VPC if you consider AWS. Okay, this is like complete VPC kind of thing, where you have the CIDR. I am taking it as 10.0.0/16, in which I am creating a subnets basically with 3.0, and 2.0 is a 1.0. So these are the different subnets. So you're going to learn how to create the VPC here, VNets, and you're going to create subnet here. Next one is the fourth one is private endpoint. So the private endpoints is nothing but, in order to make the Azure App Services private, we are going to use a private endpoint. So this is like a interface where instead of giving direct IP to the Azure App Services public IP, we are going to disconnect the public IP and we are going to provide it as a private endpoint. Right, we are going to learn what is a private endpoint, how do we configure it. Next one is, as usual, we need to configure the network security groups, right? This is like security groups in case of AWS. Okay, so we are going to learn what is security, how do we configure the network security groups. So that being said, this is the overall high level view of the architecture. As and when we start building up this architecture, we are going to learn each of these components. So yeah, so let's get into the configuration part. So before getting to the configuration part, this is the architecture. So we are going to use a Flask-based application here, just a Python small code, just to understand whether the application load, the Azure application gateway is directing the path to the is taking the respective paths, and we are getting served by it. So let's jump into the configuration part. Now I am in the Azure portal. Let's search for the resource group. So the first thing what we have to do is a resource group. A resource group is nothing but we group all the resources of our project into one group, so that it will be easy to maintain the billing as well as to manage the resource itself. So we'll create a resource group called as RG Microservices demo. And the region, you can select whichever region you are in. So I am selecting here south. You can select South India. You can just create the resource. So the resource has been grouped, has been created. Now the resource group is tied to your subscription. So once it is say accordingly, it will get billed. So what are the resources present in that resource group, right? Accordingly, it will be charged to your card. Now the next thing what we need to create is like VNet. So VNet is like a, as I told, right, it's a completely a private cloud. So we are going to create a VNet here, and we need to assign some CIDR to it. So let's create one. So it is again tied to a subscription and resource group. You have to select here, and then you can give some name here. So I'm giving VNet microservices. Region, you can select the default one. Security, everything you can leave as default for now. Select next. Here you have to select the CIDR. So I am leaving this as a default one. Now we can start creating subnets. The first subnet what we are going to create is for the front end subnet. So here you can name it as front end subnet. So it's already selecting as a 10.0.1.0. We'll leave it that default. /24 is the subnet mask what it is selected. So now you can create a one more subnet. This is for the backend subnet. So the subnet range is automatically selected as 2.0/24. You have to give the name here. So because this is a backend, right? You need not. You have to make sure that you enable private subnet so that there is no outbound access. And the third subnet, what we are going to is for the database. So though we are not using database here, but we'll create the subnet if time permits. I'll create the database also. So here also this should be a private. So we are not getting outbound access. Only for the front end subnet we are getting outbound access. So there is a dummy default one. You can remove it and you can review and create it. So now all the subnets are created. Now let's start creating the security groups, that is network security groups, and assign them to the respective subnets. So let's jump into creation of network security groups. So let's create security groups for the three subnets like a front end, back end, and database. So select the Azure subscription and the resource group, and you can give some name here like front end. You can select the default region. So it will take some time to create security group. So security group is created. Next we'll create one more security group for the backend and also the database. Now let's create another security group. So this is for the backend, and we can associate later the backend subnet to this security group. So we'll create one more security group for the DB subnet. So now all three security groups have been created. Now we can associate the security group to the subnets. Now we can start one by one associating the network security group to the respective subnet. So you can associate the network front end to the front end subnet. Same thing with the database. Same thing with the backend. All the security groups have been associated. Now we can configure the security groups. So first we'll edit the front-end security group. So here, because it is front-end, right, we have to allow the port 80 and HTTPS port 443. So both the traffic will allow. So you can check the inbound rules here. Inbound security rules, and you can add port 80 traffic from anywhere. Source port can be anywhere. So destination should be the port 80. And priority wise, you can give anything, any priority. Lower the priority, it hits the first. It gives the first preference. So you can allow the 443 port also. Next, you can edit the backend subnet. So for the backend subnet, it has to allow traffic from the front end, right? And so we'll select the IP range as the front end subnet. That is nothing but 10.0.1.0/24. So it has to allow traffic only from the front end, not the any other source. Will allow only HTTP port 80 traffic. So next we'll configure the DB. Even though I am not deploying any DB server, just for the configuration sake, I'll configure. So the DB subnet has to receive traffic from only the application. So it will be like the backend subnet. So we'll give the IP ranges backend subnet, that is nothing but 10 dot 0.2.0/24. And the database, you can select MS SQL and you can save it. Next, we'll go for the deployment of app services. The reason why I used app services because it is reduces operational overhead, enables faster deployment instead of configuring all the VM machines. So it has a built-in capability like application gateway, key vault, and managed identity. So it's better to use app services instead of VM machine. So let's create one web app. So you can select the resource group here. And the name you can give any of your choice. I have given like user services app because two paths we are using, right? So I have given user services. So the runtime stack you can select as 3.11 Python. So because we are developing in a Python Flask application. So pricing plan you can take the free tier, and the OS also you can select as Linux. Region you can select whichever region you are in. So everything you can keep it as default. So for now, I am creating a public access here. Later on, we'll remove the public access. So everything you can keep it as default. Review. You can check what are the settings here, and you can create it. So the deployment is in progress, and it will take a while for the deployment to get completed. So now you can see that the deployment is complete. So all these services have been created. So now what we need to do is to we need to create our application. So application we need to load into the app services. So for that, what I'm going to do is I need to create two files here. One is for the requirements file, another one is for the app file. So let me create the requirements file here. So what are the requirements which are used to run your application that you need to place in the requirements document here. So our application is Flask based application, right? Python is anyhow installed in the, so we need to install the Flask. So I'll be writing here the Flask and save it. Another file we have to create, that is nothing but our code, the Python code, the Flask application. We are going to paste it here. So just create it as whichever name you want. You create this .py extension, and you have to paste the code here. So code I'll be providing in the GitHub repository. It's a simple Flask-based application. It is going to return with respect to the slash user path. We need to return some JSON data just to know that whether the application is running or not. So you can paste the code here. So you can see, right, I'm returning some JSON structure here. The name is some name, Kalyan, and name is Azure Deploy. So we are running on port 8000 here. Let me save and close it. Next, we'll navigate to the app and we'll do some configurations. So just click on the user service app here, and you need to navigate to the deployment tools here. So there will be deployment tools. Yes, we need to click on the advanced tools and hit on go. So we'll be launching some Kudu services here. So Kudu is like a deployment engine. It will act as a source control management. So basically use cases will be like file management, SSH, log management, and it's like a deployment tool. So now you can select the what are the two files we created, right? We can upload these two files into the file system. So select these two files and upload into the file manager. So the path should be the home site and www root. So in this folder, we have to place these two files. Now you can navigate back to configurations, and we need to next go to the stack settings, and you can place here, you can give the command here how to run your application. So this is like a startup command or startup configuration which we use in the AWS also, like user configuration. So initially we need to give for the app to run, right? So the same thing we will give here, python app.py. So this will start the application. So now let's restart the services. So now you can navigate to overview and restart the app service. So also you can check the log stream, and we can see what are the updates happening on our services. So it will take some time for the application to run. Now you can see, right, one by one the services is coming up. As you can see, right, the app is running on the localhost IP. So the port we have given is 8000. At this point of time, the application is running. So we can take the public DNS of the app service and we can hit on the browser so that our app is going to launch. So we have to give the slash user, right? So now our app services is successfully running and we can see the JSON output here. So now we are going to deploy another app services, which is nothing but the product services, because as I've told, right, there are two parts. One is slash user and slash product. So we are going to deploy the service for the slash product path. So let us the same way, we will create one folder here and upload the requirements and app.py file here. So the application we are running on Flask, right? So that's a prerequisite. We can install the Flask application as a requirement. And we can also copy the code. The code is little bit different here. Only we are returning some JSON product information. So you can create a file here and you can copy the code of the product services. So here also we are running this application on port 8000. So it is going to return two product IDs. You can save it, close it. The code I'll be providing my GitHub repository. So now the same procedure, we are going to create one app services here, and we are going to upload the two files, the app file and the requirement file into the file manager. So you can select the resource group and subscription, and you can give some name here. So I'm giving as a product service. And runtime stack also you can select the same thing, the Python 3.11. So you can select either a basic B1 machine here, plan. So you can review and create it. So it will take some time to for the service to get deployed. So now your app is deployed. So we now follow the same procedure. Going to the advanced deployment, let's navigate to the product service app. So we'll navigate to deployment tools, advanced tools, and we'll go to the code deployment wizard. So the same way how we did for the user app, right? It's the same thing with the product app. We'll paste these two files in the file manager. We have to go to the navigate the path like /home/sites www.root. So you can go to sites and www.root, and you can upload the files here. So after the files got uploaded, we need to edit the user configuration script here. So let's edit this user configuration script. Going to configuration and stack settings, and the startup command you can give us this to start the Python app. Now you have to restart the services so that your app gets started. You can always monitor the logs by hitting on the log stream. You can now see that the app is running in the localhost IP. So now you can take the public DNS of the product app services and hit on the browser to view the page here. So now your app is functioning well. You can see that the page got loaded properly. So now we can head on to creation of application gateway. But before creation of application gateway, we need to create the separate subnet for the application gateway, because gateway itself needs to be placed in the separate subnet because of the scaling factor and isolation concept. So we already have created three subnets, that is front-end subnet, back-end subnet, and DB subnet. So the front-end subnet holds the web app, is nothing but like a web tier, where you can host the Nginx server or Apache server, and the back-end subnet hosts the app subnet, and the DB subnet is a database. So we need to create a separate subnet for the application gateway. So let's create a separate subnet for the application gateway. So go to the subnets. As we already have three subnets, one more subnet we'll create here. So you can just create a 4.0 subnet /24. So you can give some name here. I am giving us an app gateway subnet and create a subnet. So now we have four subnets here. So now let's start building up the application gateway. So we'll search for the application gateway. So we'll create an application gateway here. Just we can select the subscription here, resource group here, give some name here, and the region you can select the default region. Version 2 you can select tire, and this is the scaling what we have to give. This is because it's just a lab scenario. We are giving it a minimum count and maximum count is also 1. So virtual network, you can give the VNet what we have created, and the subnet you can give is app subnet whatever we created for the exclusively for the application gateway. And here you have to assign one public IP. Give it some name here because the application gateway lies in the public subnet, so everybody can access it through internet. So we are assigning one public IP to it. Just give some name. So now we have to select the backends. So there are two backends here. One is like slash user backend and another is slash product. So we have created two backends here. The first one is slash user backend. We can name some user backend. And you can select the target type as app services and give the app services name here, user service app. So one more backend we can add for the product. So you can give us backend product, and again you can select the app service here. So now you have created two backends here, and now we can proceed to next. So before going to the next step, I wanted to just demonstrate this roles here. So we need to create a backend role. Let's say, for example, the role name is role API and priority we give it as 100. So here we created three paths here. One is default path and slash user and slash product. So if you see the backend settings remain same, that is default settings. We have backend settings for default settings, settings user and settings product. So the settings remain same for each part. It's like port will be 80 and backend protocol will be HTTP. Override host name you have to select it as yes, and you have to select the option pick a host name from backend target. So these three settings for the three parts remain same. And here you have to select the type. Target type is backend and backend pool for three of the paths, and backend target you have to select as backend user. This is the default path, and this is slash user backend user, and for the product you could select as backend product. Now in the listener side you can select the front end IP as public IPv4 and protocol as HTTP and port is equal to 80. So these are the settings what I'll be configuring now. So it will be easy for us to understand. So I have to prepare this table. You can go through this table for further clarification. Now let's start configuring them. We'll proceed to next, creating the routing rules. So the rule name, as I told in the figure, right, it will be rule API, and the priority we can give it as 100. And listener name we can give as like HTTP listener. And the front end IP, you can leave it as public IPv4. Protocol will be HTTP. Port number will be 80. Now let's jump into backend targets. So backend pool, here we'll configure the first the default backend pool, or else you can configure first the path based routing. So we will create two paths here. So the first part will be /user. So the target name, some random name you have to give. So I have given as user target, and you can select the backend settings. So backend settings are not yet created. We need to create the backend settings now. You can click on add new and give it some name here. So I've given settings user, backend port will be 80, and rest all you can leave default, whereas you have to select override with new host name. That should be selected as yes, and give the option like pick host name from the backend target. So now the setting user backend settings have been created. Now you can select the backend target. So the backend target will be selecting as backend user. So now we can create another path for the /product. So product name, you can give some random name, like I have given like product target. So here also you have to create backend settings because the settings are not created earlier. We can create the same settings here. So you can select the same options here as well. So backend target, you can select the backend product. So now two paths are created. Now we have to create the default path. So the default path you can add here as a backend user because that is a default path. And backend settings also you can create one default settings. The same settings remain. So if the user enters /user, it will direct it /user. If you don't enter any path, right, then it will go for the /user path. So now the routing rules have been set. We can proceed to next step. You can review and create. So deployment takes a while. So now your deployment is completed. So now you can check the backend health here. You can see right, one system is healthy, another user service app is unhealthy. So we need to figure out the problem. Here, let me check the code here. Let's go to file manager. So we can go to site and we'll check the our Python app here. So the reason why it is not coming healthy is we missed the /path here. We have given slash user, but we need to give the default path also. So let's edit it. So the change in the code is the default, the function we have in written user settings is running. So for the default path, so we'll update both the app services and we can restart it. So now you can see, right, all of them are healthy. Now you can grab the public IP of the application gateway and our app should open successfully. You can see, right, now we are successfully able to open our application using app services and with the help of application gateway. You can also create the private endpoint for the product service app. So let's click on networking here. You can say private endpoint, then add a private endpoint, advanced, select the subscription, resource group, and you can give some name here. So default region you can select and click on next. So this will be all default. So subnet you can select as a backend subnet. Because we are placing the services in the backend without the public subnet. So all these settings you can leave default. So now you can review and create. So deployment is in progress and we have to wait for some time. Now the deployment is completed. You can click on the product service. You can click on the network interfaces and you can see the private IP here. We have deployed in the backend subnet, right? So 10.0.2.5 is the IP. Similarly, for the user private endpoint also created, and that IP is 2.4. Now we have to change some parameters in the microservices gateway. So let's jump into the gateway here. Now we have to edit the backend pools. Now see, initially backend pool, what we have given, the app services, right? Now we have to remove that app services and we give the IP address. So if you edit the backend pool here, initially it was giving app services. So now we'll make it as a IP address and give the IP address of the app services. The private endpoint IP, you can copy it from here. For user services, it is 2.4, right? Just copy this one and give it here. Same thing we have to edit for the product backend pool. So backend product also we have to take the IP address like it is something 2.5. So once it is updated, the deployment is undergoing and it's completed. Now again, we have to change the backend settings also. So the backend settings, initially we have pick host name from backend target, right? Now that we have to change it to the domain specific name. So we'll jump into the backend settings here. So settings user also, we have to change it. Initially it was right pick host name from backend targets, right? Now we'll write it with override with specific domain name, because the domain name is required in order for the app services to resolve the service. So the domain name you can get it from the user service app in the overview tab. So just copy that domain name and paste it in the settings. So override with specific domain name, the domain name of the user service app. You can paste it here. Same thing you have to do with all the settings, like the product settings and the default settings too. The default settings is nothing but the user app. So you'll give the same domain name. For the product, you have to pick the product domain name. So that's all. Now we can check with the public DNS of the application gateway and hit on the browser to check whether our apps are functional or not. You can see the health checks are all good. So now we should be able to access our app from the public DNS of the application gateway. Yeah, now it's able to access, right? Even product path is also accessible now. Now the last step what we are going to do is, because these are accessible with the help of the public IPs, so we need to disconnect the public IP. So we will disable the public access. So that we can do by just going to the access restrictions and disable the public access. For both the paths, we can disable the public access. So in a way that we are securing the services from public access, we are placing them in the backend subnet, and they are communicating with the help of the private networks. So now you can try accessing the same path. They should be accessible without the public IPs. So internally they are communicating with the private IP. So that's all, folks. Thank you for so much for watching till end. So if you find this video helpful or useful for in any way, please subscribe to this channel so that it will be boosting for me. So I'll bring forth more and more real-time projects in this channel. So please stay tuned until we hit on the next project. Thank you.